After 8 years and well over 1,000 miles of abuse on this ATV, has it held up? Up next, I'm going to give you my honest review of this ATV and answer the important question of, was it worth it? Well, welcome back to Diverge Off-Road. Today, I'm going to be doing a very long-term review of my 2018 Can-Am Outlander Max 850 XTP. Now, this will be a true long-term review, 8 years to be exact. And you might be thinking to yourself, why are you reviewing an ATV that's 8 years old? This is old news. That's a fair question, but I think after 1,500 miles and 164 hours on this machine, I'm going to be able to give you a very real-world review of what it's been like to own this ATV for the past 8 years. And also, if you're someone who might be in the market for a used ATV, you're looking to compare these Gen 2 Can-Am ATVs to another brand, this is also going to be very valuable to you as well. So what I'd like to do today is to give you some of the pros and even some of the cons of this machine, since no ATV is perfect, and then give you an overall summary at the end of what my thoughts are on this ATV. So let's get into it. All right, first on my list of pros for this machine is the engine. This fuel-injected V-twin Rotax engine comes in at 854 cc's, and it is a beast. The power, torque, and throttle response are all top-notch. This engine is rated at 78 horsepower, so it's definitely not lacking in that department. And just to give you some perspective on that horsepower rating, the 2026 CF Moto C-Force 1000 engine that comes in at 963 cc's is only rated at 84 horsepower, and the 2026 Polaris Sportsman 1000 engine, which is 952 cc's, is rated at 88 horsepower. So the 78 horsepower rating of this 8-year-old 850 is in line with these new ATVs from other manufacturers, even though the displacement is much less. Overall, the power is amazing. I've never felt like I need more power with this machine. And I come from a sport quad riding background, so I know what it's like to ride fast ATVs. Riding in the mountains of Colorado, we are almost always at elevation of 8,000 feet or above, even sometimes up to 13,000 feet. And I never feel like this engine is lacking power. Obviously, at higher elevations, the engines are lacking oxygen, so they're going to have less power. But I've never felt like with this engine that it's ever starving for power or it's lacking power at high elevations, even, like I said, up to 13,000 feet. This engine sounds amazing too. I just love the V-twin sound of this thing. It's really throaty and kind of got some bark to it. I think it sounds so much better than any of the other single-cylinder engines out there, and even the Polaris parallel twins. Nothing really compares to the V-twin sound for me. And one thing that Can-Am did with these machines, these older Gen 2s, is they give you two different keys and they're programmed differently. The first key is programmed in what they call normal mode, and that key does a couple of things. It softens the throttle response so it's not so aggressive. It reduces the overall power output, and it also limits the speed to 43 miles per hour. So this key can be used if you had a rider that was a beginner or a younger rider that you didn't want to have access to the full potential of the engine to make it a little safer for them. It does a good job of taming down this engine, so it's much more manageable for less experienced riders. The other key is programmed for performance mode. This key gives you the full power and throttle response of the engine. It doesn't limit the overall speed of the ATV at all. This key would be for the more experienced riders, people that want to really take it out to its full potential. But overall, I think this is a really great feature of these Can-Am ATVs, where you have two different riding modes, I guess, for the power of the engine. You get to choose which one that you use. If you are somebody that's new, beginner, and trying to learn it, then you might want to use the normal mode, less power. Or if you are a parent maybe that want to let your kids ride a full-size ATV, they're kind of growing into that full-size stage, it'd be great for them to learn on that as well before giving them the full power of the engine It's very similar to the new Gen 3 machines where they have a rocker switch on the handlebar where they can choose between the 3 modes. I think they have work, normal, and sport, I believe, on the new machines, and it's a toggle switch on the handlebar itself instead of using the one button as in these Gen 2 machines. And speaking of the keys on this machine, they're not a typical metal key that you insert into the ignition and turn it. They're a plastic key with a digital chip in them that is encoded to the actual specific machine. And they use like a ball and socket type key where the key is the socket and there is a ball mount on the machine where it clips over it. It's a really tight fit, so you press it on over the ball and it locks in place and it can't move. It can't come out, accidentally when you're riding or anything like that. I think it's really cool. It's a unique thing about these Can-Ams, and I've never once had an ignition problem with this engine. It always fires up all the time, even in heavy rain and hailstorms, things like that. Okay, so pro number 2 on this machine is the suspension and the ride quality. The ride on this ATV is excellent. It's very responsive, it's controlled, it's very tight. This ATV comes with very good Fox 1.5 Podium QS3 reservoir shocks with this XTP package. These shocks are 3-way adjustable and compression damping. There's a clicker on the top of the shock that has 3 positions, 1, 2, and 3, with 1 being soft and 3 being firm. No tools are needed for this adjustment, so it's very easy and quick if you want to adjust them on your ride as you're riding. Spring preload adjustment can be made by using the cam adjusters on the top of the springs. This suspension gives you the feeling that it was designed right from the factory to be ridden more aggressively, which is how I tend to ride most of the time anyway. So for me, this is a perfect suspension setup for how I ride. And actually this thing jumps pretty well for an 800-pound utility quad. If you get it up in the air, the shocks actually do a really good job of soaking up the weight of the machine. It never really bottoms out. It's never a harsh landing. Now, I'm not out there doing giant Red Bull jumps or something like that, but some water bars here and there, nothing super impressive. But I will say that these shocks are excellent all around at soaking up the hard hits and the landings. Now, even though it's very easy to adjust the compression damping on these shocks, I typically tend to just set it and forget it. I have found that the setting number 1 is really good for me because I'm not a terribly heavy guy and it just seems to work really well for my type of riding all around. Also, these gas reservoir shocks tend to run a little stiffer than the standard shocks that you get with lower trim versions of these Can-Am ATVs. So I think the soft setting on these is still stiffer than the standard shocks, but that's just an assumption of mine. All right, pro number 3 on this machine is the steering. This model has DPS, which is Can-Am's dynamic power steering system, and it has 3 different modes. Low, medium, and high, which low has the least amount of steering boost, while high has the most amount of steering boost. The adjustment is right here with this yellow button. You can toggle through the settings very quickly. Once the engine is running, you just push the button for like a second or 2, and then it will change the mode, min, medium, and max. So it's very easy to adjust. Even as you're out on the trail, you can adjust it. If you're in very tight quarters going very slow, you might want to bump it up a little bit, but typically I'm running it in setting number 1 because that seems to be the best setting for me. I don't like a terrible amount of steering assist typically. I do like that it has the at the higher speeds, like when you get up probably above 35, 40 miles an hour, somewhere in there, it acts as a steering stabilizer. So it keeps the handlebars really tight and doesn't allow you to jerk the handlebars at all. It keeps it very steady and controlled, and it gives you a lot of confidence when you're riding at higher speeds. I do like that you can have different settings. With this one, you can set it exactly how you want it and tailor it to your specific needs. All right, pro number 4 on this machine are the seats, both the front and the rear. So for years, manufacturers have been throwing around the term all-day comfort for their seats, but I can actually tell you that this is actually very true with this machine. I typically ride many hours on end for my long distance trips, and I've never once complained about the seat on this thing. It's super plush, it's very comfortable, it's really wide, so the comfort on it is just excellent. And even if I were out for a very long trail ride, I've noticed that I don't even think twice about getting back on the machine for like an evening ride or a night ride, because I'm never tired of riding it. I appreciate that the seat is so comfortable that it truly is all-day comfort on this thing. And the rear seat on here, the passenger seat, it's also very comfortable. Now, 95% of the time, I'm not riding with a passenger. I'm typically riding it by myself, but when I am, I usually have one of my kids are sitting on the back. They're teenagers, and they love the seat. They never complained about it. But I actually did ride on the back seat one time. I had my son. He was riding the ATV or driving it, and I was sitting on the back seat. And my experience was that it was extremely comfortable. You're quite a bit higher up in height than the driver's seat, but the position of it is really comfortable with the foot wells or foot pegs down here, and the hand grips are super solid, and they have you can have like 3 or 4 different positions for your hands. So the seat on here is very comfortable, both the front and the rear seat. Another thing I really like about this rear seat is that the mounting of it is super solid. It doesn't move around. It doesn't make any noise. I have experience with an older Polaris 2-up machine that has a rear seat, and that rear seat is very, very loose, and it wiggles around a lot even when it's mounted as it should be mounted. It's got a lot of play, and it wiggles and jiggles around, makes a lot of noise. And I don't like that. I don't like that extra noise back there. Things that make noise make me nervous. So I feel like sometimes I'm double checking it to make sure it's actually attached and things like that. But this one does not do that. It is very, very secure. It's got a locking mechanism right here in the back of the seat that locks it in place, and it doesn't move at all. It doesn't make any noise. It's super easy to remove. You can remove it very easily to take it off if you don't want to have this seat on here, if you're riding as a single rider. And then you can take this standard little storage box that's in the back, and you can move this into the position where the seat was, and get that way, kind of frees up your rear rack a little bit to be flat, but it also has another little storage area there for whatever small things that you want to put in there. So very well thought out, well designed rear seat. And like I said, all day comfort on these things. I've never had an issue with the comfort of these seats. So big plus on the Can-Ams. All right, pro number 5 for this machine is the gauge package that comes with this XTP model. I absolutely love the gauges, how they look on here. They're very different than the other models, like the XT models or any of the other Can-Ams of this era that are just a digital LCD. This is actually like an analog looking set of gauges that is super unique. And this is, of course, a personal opinion. I just think it's so much better looking than the normal LCD gauges that you get with the other XT models or the other versions of this generation of ATV. It really sets it apart with the separate speedo and the tack moving up and around. And I just really like the color scheme of it. It looks really cool. Okay, last pro on the list at number 6 is the reliability. Overall, this has been an amazing ATV, very reliable. It's been almost problem-free for the entire 8 years that I've owned it. I haven't had any major issues with it at all. I tend to think that's kind of remarkable because I do not baby this thing. We have some very rough trails out here in Colorado, lots of rocks, very steep hills. And when you're bombing trails at 20 to 40 miles per hour, things tend not to last very long. So I've been very, very impressed with the reliability. of this machine over that stretch of time. Like I said, 1,500 miles on this thing. That's a lot of time on the trails, and I can only think of one instance where there was a failure. Back in 2024, I was riding, and the rear differential seal blew, or it failed, and it was throwing differential fluid all over the underside of the machine. Luckily, it was a family trip that we were on, so we were not that far from the truck, so we could just simply drive it back to the truck and load it up and take it back. So it wasn't a big deal. But I ended up getting that repaired at a local shop for, I think it was $350 for that repair. So like I said, yes, it did fail, but that is a very minor thing to me. A seal is not major. That's not a major expense. It has had no engine issues whatsoever, no electronics, no drive system, things like that failed whatsoever. It's been a really great ATV over the past 8 years, and I can't recommend it enough, honestly. An interesting side note on the reliability of this machine is I actually have the OEM battery in here. This is an 8-year-old battery in this machine still that I'm still running. It's made by Yuasa. It's kind of a big battery, but I think Yuasa has a very good reputation for being excellent batteries, and I can certainly speak to the dependability of it. And you could say I maybe got lucky with this battery in this particular machine, but my friend Spencer, who you've seen riding in my videos, same thing. He has his same original battery in a 2017 Can-Am, so it's even a year older than mine, and he's still running his stock factory battery in there. So I would say that another thing of reliability with the Can-Ams, they put higher quality batteries in there. So kudos to Can-Am for making a machine that overall is extremely reliable, dependable. I'm never worried about taking it on far off adventures out in the middle of nowhere. I just know that it's going to be rock solid for me. Okay, on to the cons now. Some things that I don't like about this machine or I wish were improved. Now, this obviously isn't a new machine. This is a Gen 2 ATV, and with the introduction of the Gen 3 models that came out in 2025, I think a lot of the things that I'm going to complain about this ATV have probably been dealt with in the new generation. So this is specific to these Gen 2 models. Coming in at number 1 on my list of cons on the machine is the shifter. Not so much the shift design itself, but the shifter linkage, the internals, it leaves a lot to be desired, I guess I would say. It's just lacking some refinement. Other ATVs I've seen shift a lot smoother than these, and they can get kind of stuck in gear sometimes where you're trying to go from park to low, or you're going from park to reverse, where it doesn't want to move very easily, so you kind of have to put a lot of muscle into moving the shifter. A common term with this generation of Can-Ams is the Can-Am hump, where you kind of have to rock your body on the machine as you're shifting the lever, because you kind of want it in motion just slightly to get your shifter to engage to the next position. And I've found over the years, for me, that something that works really well is if you want to switch from low to high or high to low, just come to almost a very gradual stop where the tires are just ever so slightly moving, and it will shift in and engage much easier than if you're completely stopped. Now, I will say that mine does not shift quite as bad as other Can-Ams that I've seen. For instance, my friend Spencer, who you've seen in the videos, his shift's a little bit harder than mine, and he complains about it more than me. And that's really odd, because both of us had our shifter linkage bearings replaced a few years back in hopes of trying to remedy this issue. So we both had that repair done, and mine works a little bit better than his, even though we had the same thing done. I'm not sure what's going on there, but I felt it was enough an improvement for mine where I don't really complain about it much anymore, or I'm just used to it. But it is something that Can-Am in this generation they do sometimes have an issue with it. Okay, con number 2 for this machine for me is the brakes. The brakes on here are fine. They're just not great. I just feel like it could use a little bit more stopping power for a machine of this weight at 800 pounds, whatever it is, a little over 800 pounds. It could use a little bit more stopping power to give you more confidence that it's going to stop quickly. I found that when riding faster, I tend to ride faster than maybe most people, but it's a little nerve-wracking to know that if you're at speed and you need to stop quickly, like in an emergency maneuver or something, that they just don't seem to grab instantaneously. Now, my last machine that I had before this was a Honda TRX 450R, which is a sport quad. And yes, I realize that that ATV is like less than half of the weight of this machine, but that quad had a phenomenal brake system. It was probably top 3 braking system that was ever put on a factory ATV. I mean, it would stop instantaneously. So I feel like I'm a little spoiled by having the experience of that ATV coming to a large ATV that's it's just a lot of weight to stop. So I don't expect a utility ATV of this weight to stop like a sport ATV. I'm not saying that. I just am saying that I wish it had just a little bit more oomph to the braking system, where it would felt a little more positive. Like if you really grab it, it's going to lock up the wheels like instantaneously. But this seems to just come on a little gradual. So I am going to say that it's a con for me. Other people may not think that, but for me, it's just a little lacking in the braking department. And even for this model, the XTP, where this is geared more for people who are probably going to be riding it more aggressively, i.e. faster. So if they would have maybe had an upgraded brake system for this XTP model, maybe just to set it apart even more, that would have been a really cool feature. Okay, last on the list of cons, number 3 is the headlights. I'm getting a little picky at this point, but I have to mention them for me. I've seen other reviews of the headlights and they say, oh, they're great, they're fine, they do a phenomenal job. But now, I'm not going to say that they're bad headlights, because they're not. They do an adequate job of lighting up the trail in front of you. I think the high beams are really good. They have a projector beam headlight that focuses the light out in front of you. But what I have noticed when I'm riding in super dark trails in the mountains is that I would like to see more light to the side, out shining to the side of the trail, into the trees and things like that. So what I did is I bought a set of rigid pod lights and put those on here. It makes so much difference. It is absolutely night and day between the light that you get from the standard factory lights versus the light that you get from these rigid lights. It's almost like you're riding in the daytime out on the trail. It shines the light in a kind of a flood pattern out to the side, and so you have this broad white light that just kind of illuminates everything in front of you, and it gives you a lot more confidence when you're riding at night. You can see a potential animal or sticks or stumps or rocks that are in the trail where you may not see those with the factory lights because they're shining way off in the distance. Let's say if they're on high beam, you're going to miss something that's right in front of you. But with these kind of a flood pattern, it illuminates everything in front of you with a really white, bright light. So I really like the fact that I can ride at night without being nervous of missing something. So if you don't ride at night, I'm sure the stock headlights are going to be just fine for you with no problems. But if you spend any amount of time at all riding at night, I would highly suggest you get a set of aftermarket lights to put on your ATV, because speaking from experience, it makes such a difference and it gives you a lot more confidence. I would highly recommend getting some aftermarket lights. Okay, so on to my overall summary of this machine and my thoughts on it for owning it for the past 8 years. Overall, excellent ATV. Honestly, I would say that I've never even really desired to get another ATV because I like this one so much. The power, like I said, is amazing. It's got tons of power, torque. It's responsive. I can climb anything I want to. I can go really fast, or I can putz around and go really slow. It's really, the engine's very versatile. Suspension is amazing. You can do anything from bombing trails to riding two-ups with your kids and just kind of putzing around as well. So it's very versatile in that realm of the suspension. Steering, the 3-mode DPS, you can choose which mode that you want to use out on the trail, and you can change it very quickly. So that's also a huge plus. Seats, very, very comfortable, last all day long. You can ride them all day with no issues. And finally, the reliability. For this machine to last 8 years with just one seal going out, I feel like that's remarkable, honestly. I don't know if another ATV would have lasted and held up as well as this Can-Am did for those 8 years, but I've been super impressed with it. So to answer the question here at the end, did it hold up? Absolutely yes. The one thing I mentioned that failed was the rear seal and the rear differential. Unfortunate, but to me that's very minor. A $350 repair for a seal is nothing major after 8 years of owning a machine and the amount of abuse that I put this thing through. It absolutely held up to anything that I threw at it. Terrible conditions, rain, hail, cold, extreme heat, everything. So I would say that it absolutely held up, and I think it actually exceeded my expectations for reliability, quite honestly. Well, now to answer the question of, was it worth it? Well, knowing what I know now and having owned it for the past 8 years, and also knowing that Can-Am ATVs are not the lowest priced ATVs on the market, they're probably one of the highest priced ATVs on the market. Was it worth the higher price initially to buy this machine versus buying another brand that may have been cheaper? To me, absolutely yes. I would rather spend a little bit more money to get something that I know is going to be good, or something that fits my riding style better than anything else out there. I'm okay paying a premium for that. Let me just say this. I would have a very hard time buying another ATV from a different brand after owning this one. Something would have to completely blow me away for me to consider owning anything other than a Can-Am. So for me, it's absolutely worth the extra price paid up front to get something that you know is going to be great. And now that I have experience with Can-Am, a longevity test, I know they're reliable. That was one thing I didn't know going into it. Coming from older sport quads and stuff, I had no experience owning a utility ATV whatsoever. And now that I have, I've really been blown away by this ATV over the past 8 years. So I would highly recommend Can-Am. I would say that they're probably one of the top ATV manufacturers out there, if not the best. They're certainly the best looking ATV out there, if I don't say so myself. And it's true sometimes that you get what you pay for. I would say that with this one, this XTP version, I actually got more than I wanted out of it. It's got some extra things, the additional items on here, the suspension, the gauge package, the beadlock wheels, and the handguards that all come standard with the XTP model. Those are things that I probably would have wanted to add, but it would have cost me more in the end because you didn't buy the package up front. So for me, it's totally worth getting the looks and the suspension up front and just have it and run it. So to answer the question, would I buy another one? Yes, I would absolutely buy another Can-Am ATV after this experience, and it would probably highly likely be another XTP model because I feel like this has the features on it that I would want, and it actually fits my riding style to a T. So kudos to Can-Am for making an excellent machine, for making one that's built for a little bit higher performance for the people that want that. And I would just say that I wouldn't have any reservations recommending Can-Am to anyone if they're in the market for an ATV. I would say that they're probably the top manufacturer on my list. as far as dependability and features and performance. They tend to outperform anything in their class, their engine class size, and definitely more power. I think I've heard from other people that have ridden this that they say it's way different than what they own, and they really like how it rides, how smooth it is, how powerful it is. And so I would say that Can-Am has just got it really dialed in. And like I said, this is not a new machine. This is 8 years old. This is kind of old technology in Can-Am's books, but the new ones I'm sure are far and away better than this one. Well guys, that's going to do it for this video. If you're still watching this to the very end, wow, thank you. I appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed it and I found this information helpful. If you have any comments or questions or any specific questions about this particular ATV model, I'd love to hear your questions below. And even if I said something that you disagree with, I want to hear those comments as well. I hope you guys have a great day. God bless.